Hello, welcome to this video on Bodhicaryavatara, chapter 6, verse 12. Katanchilabhyate saukhyan duhkang stitam ayatnataha duhkenaiva cha nisarash chetas tasmad dridhi bhava. And again now with text. Katanchilabhyate saukyam duhkang stitam ayatnataha duhkenaiva cha nihsarash chetastasmad dridhi bhava. First word katanchit, and by sandhi the t becomes a l before the following l, so katanchit labhyate becomes katanchilabhyate. Katam means how, as a question, and by adding chit to a question word, you make it an indefinite. So, for example, kim, what? Kinchid means something, something or other. Kada, when? Kadachit, at some time or another. So, katam, how? Katanchit, somehow or other, in one way or another. And that word katanchit is often used to mean somehow or other I managed that, but with difficulty, as if you can't quite believe your luck. Katanchit labhyate, somehow or other it is obtained. The suggestion there is it was not to be expected. It was done with difficulty. It was done against the odds. Somehow or other I won. I mean, they didn't expect to do it, but with great difficulty, unexpectedly against the odds, I did. So that's the meaning of katanchil here. So katanchil labhyate saukyam. Labhyate is a very ordinary, uncomplicated passive from our root. So from sukha, which remember can be a noun and an adjective. It could, so, okay. Here, saukyam is the derivative abstract noun from sukha in its adjectival meaning. So sukha, happy. Let's make our standard vridhi derivative abstract noun. So vridhi of the first vowel, sau, and the final a becomes ya. So sukha, happy, saukhya, happiness. Remember also, by the way, that sukha can be used as a noun, a neuter noun, sukham. So you have dukkham and sukham, suffering and happiness. So here, Shantideva could have used sukha in its meaning as a noun without altering the meaning. So he could have said katanchil labhyate, so labhyate sukhan dukkam stitamayatnata. That would have had the same meaning. Is there a subtle difference? It's difficult to say. It's difficult to say really whether there is a subtle difference between noun sukha and abstract noun saukyam. Um, I won't venture to try and make a difference now. Maybe there is some terribly subtle difference. Remember, by contrast, um, that the the word sukha as an adjective can be applied to a thing and a person. If it's applied to a thing, it's a thing that's pleasant, happy making. Um, for instance, I have quite, you might get a sukha mug of coffee here. That is sukha indeed. And it can also apply to a person, that a person can say that he's feeling sukha. By contrast, dukkha, although formed in exactly the same way, sukha, dukkha as an adjective applies. I'm not sure if there are any exceptions to this, but certainly according to Monier Williams and according to what I remember having read, dukkha cannot apply to a person. You don't say, I am feeling dukkha. I'm in a dukkha state. It applies to a thing, a painful thing. Maranam dukkam, the process of dying is dukkam, causes suffering, it's painful. So just bear in mind that there is that distinction. If you look up in Monier Williams under sukha and dukkha, you'll see that that is set out. By the way, if you want to say that if you are suffering dukkha, you'd use the word dukkita. Just as you can say sukhita as well. That's the past participle of the verb dukkayati, to cause suffering. Dukkita, made to suffer, made to feel dukkha. So katanchi labhyate sukham. So saukyam, sorry. So saukyam, the feeling of sukha, being sukha, is easily obtained. Labhyate, root lab. Passive, just add a ya to the root labhyate. So this ya here is the hallmark of the passive labhyate. So saukyam, the state of feeling happiness, is obtained with difficulty, against the odds. Dukkam, dukkha, stitam, literally stood, is stood, means just it's there, you get it. Abides is around, stita. The stita, meaning stood, has got quite a wide range of meanings, basically meaning for something just being there. Ayatnata. Yatna, from the root yet. The original meaning of the root yet is to stretch. And by extension, it means to make an effort. So yatna, verbal noun, means an effort. Literally a stretching and then an effort. With this suffix taha, in Vedic, it was an alternative form of the ablative. So you could have yatnat, yatnataha, narat, narataha, any as a general alternative ablative ending. In later Sanskrit, and certainly by the time of the classical Sanskrit that we see with Shantideva, the suffix is still quite widely used, but it has more. It's not exactly an ablative, but it has more. It has gives an adverbial force to the word. So yatnataha is obtained with effort, by effort, effortfully. And negate that, ayatnataha, without effort, effortlessly. So dukkam stitam ayatnataha. Dukkha is there, without you having to try. That's what this verse is saying. Without having to try, without putting in any effort. Dukkam stitam ayatnataha. Dukkha is stood without effort. Dukkhenaiva cha nihasaraha. Pause that out. Dukkhena eva cha nihasaraha. Nihsara means escape. Now, many of you will, sorry, not many of you, there may be some of you who might say, hang on, does it not mean renunciation? And there are some people who have studied the Bodhicaryavatara from within the Tibetan tradition and from within the Tibetan translation, or translated from Tibetan into English. And some of those people say, no, it means renunciation. And I don't actually know Tibetan, but I think what has happened is that there has been a mistranslation, very rare in these august and venerable translations. It's rare for there to be a mistranslation, but I'm fairly sure that there has been a mistranslation of this word Nesara in the Tibetan translation that's in very wide use. In fact, even I'm looking now at for example, Stephen Batchelor's Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, which is a translation from the Tibetan, where he translates, without suffering there is no renunciation. Well, this is one of those very rare occasions where I do have to stand up and say, sorry, there is a mistake here. The Tibetan translators did get that wrong. Nesara means renunciation. Sorry, Nesara means escape. Let's analyze that word. It's from our root Sri, meaning to go. And it makes a verbal noun, Sara. And for example, Sara going, and if you want to make a series of completed goings, you get, what do you get? You get samsara, don't you? Or samsara, going round and round and round. So it's a completed going, and then by extension, a series of completed goings going round and round and round. Samsara. The verbal prefix ni, or depending on where it occurs, the word ni, nish, nir, means out. For example, va, to blow, nirvana, blowing out, sara, going, nihsara, going out. It means escaping. So come back to our text. Oops, sorry. Dukkhenaiva cha nihsara. Let's change that to take out the sandhi. So nihsara, escape. Dukkhena evacha. Cha, again, rather loose use of the word cha, means here but. It's contrasting. Um, Indeed, it could be left out entirely without altering the meaning. Duhkaineva nesara would make perfect sense and would not alter the meaning of this verse at all. So duhkena, instrumental, by duhka, by suffering. Eva here has its kind of full meaning of only. Only by suffering is there escape. Duhkena eva cha nesara. So duhkena eva, the e ai by sandhi, duhkena eva cha nesara. Only by suffering is there escape. Chetas here meaning the mind, so chittam, it's a neuter noun, chitta, also chetas. Is there really a distinction between the two? Difficult to say, and um, it's doubtful whether there is any distinction. If it had been chitta tasmadridhi bhava, I think it would have meant exactly the same. It's the heart mind, sometimes translated as not just the thinking mind. It's the entire kind of perceptive. It's the thing, almost the thing that makes us us. The personality mind, your desires, wishes, the kind of the springs of action within the mind is the chetas. And here it's used in the vocative. I'm just going to have to. So that's where I put 8 there for the vocative. O mind, O mind. He's giving an instruction to his own chetas. Tasmad, from that, meaning therefore, dridhi bhava, be firm. I'll just unpack this dridhi bhava for you. It's slightly unusual construction there. First of all, dridha is an adjective. It's from the. Here we are. Give you the iPad. The root drh means to be firm or strong. Um, query whether it's actually related to the root dri, from which we get meaning to hold, and firmness, dharma, that which is firm, the laws of nature in that sense. Now, when you get a verb root that ends in an H, you make a past participle by adding ta, but by internal sandhi, where the H, the h meets the ta, it becomes a dh. So, drihta becomes dridha. It's drihta, dridha. So it just means strong or firm. Sometimes this phenomenon of the h plus t forming her causes a lengthening of the preceding vowel. It doesn't in the case of dridha, but for instance, our well-known root mu, from which we get moha, commonly translated as delusion. So verbal noun moha, it makes its past participle mudha. So we see the same phenomenon of the h with the t becoming a d, but in this particular case we get a lengthening of the vowel as well. That's how we get mudha, meaning deluded. Now, I would more have expected to see be firm, dridho bhava. In fact, chetas is a neuter noun. So if he's addressing his own mind, we would have said dridham bhava, be firm, and dridham neuter because he's addressing the chetas, which is grammatically neuter. If you're saying to a woman, be firm, be strong, you say dridha bhava. Now, when you are making compounds of which the final element is the noun bhava, well, I think it also applies to bhava. Bhava meaning a state, a being from the root bhu to be. Bhava um, tends to mean a state or condition. By the way, bhava and bhava, they're both verbal nouns from the root bhu to be. There is an overlap between them, but they both mean being, but more bhava tends to be meaning becoming, coming into being, as in, for example, rebirth, punarbhava, literally again being, coming into being again, rebirth. Bhava more has the meaning of a state of being, how you feel, the kind of condition that you are in at the moment. That's the bhava. When bhava is in compound, as the second or final member of a compound noun, means the state of being something, the preceding member of the compound will often change its final vowel to E. So, for example, Dridhi bhava, that would be a noun meaning the state or condition of being firm. Could be translated just meaning firmness, but emphasizes the person's state at that moment as being firm. So so rather than dridha bhava, which it would normally be, but there's a special rule that if it's before a bhava, mm, or before the derivatives of kri to do. These are the only two words that where it happens. You often get this e coming into the formation of the compound. Here, however, it is not a compound noun. This is a verb. Bhava is the imperative. So it's a bit unusual, and I think Panini would not have approved. It's a bit unusual to see this dridhi bhava, which would be correct for the compound noun, then being applied to a verb. In fact, I think it's rather rare to see it. Maybe I've seen, I can't remember offhand, but it's unusual. But the way it's done, dridhi bhava, is explained by the fact maybe Shantideva was just maybe remember Sanskrit grammar was kind of loosening up a little bit at that time, so quite a few things are said in Shantideva, not gravely so. It's still we'd regard as good classical Sanskrit, but a number of things occur in Shantideva that Panini would have said, "Oi, oi, that's not quite right." Just like the I mentioned in the previous verse, sorry, um, the where are we now? The use of the singular when Panini would have said, "Oh, you need a plural there." Anipsitam, you see, anipsitam. Okay, he's put it in the singular, whereas it should be a plural. According to Panini, it should be a plural. It had become evidently all right by Shantideva's time. So equally, dridhi bhava, verb, compound verb, Panini would say, "Oh, you can't do that. You can only add this e, change dridha bhava to dridhi bhava. If it's a compound noun, you can't do it with verbs." So I'm fairly certain that Panini would have said, no, you can't do that correctly. But anyway, there it is. That's the explanation of what appears to be an anomaly. So I will read it through for you again. कथञ्चिल्लभ्यते सौख्यं दुःखं स्थितमयत्नतः दुःखेनैव च निस्सारश्चेतस्तस्माद् दृढी भव. Once more. कथञ्चिल्लभ्यते सौख्यं दुःखं स्थितमयत्नतः दुःखेनैव च निस्सारश्चेतस्तस्माद् दृढी भव. And that's all for verse 12.